on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Viall Files Ask Nick edition. I am your host, Nick, joined by the household of Leia and Ellie. Hello, Leias. Sweet boy Justin is working on the Monica sizzle. He's
hard at work.
He's hard at work. He's really focused on this. Justin's always really been the Monica. We have Justin to thank for making sure that Monica came on here. He was always in my ear telling me we should do it. And he was right about that one.
Paid off?
It paid off. Anyways, we got a great episode for you. First, I wanted to do a little callback to last week. Our caller who was in the open relationship, but she originally called in. What was her headline? I'm dating one guy and I'm thinking about sleeping with his friend.
Can you date two friends in the same group?
Yeah.
Or can you sleep with two guys in the same group?
Yeah. She thought that was like her big question, and as often is the case with Ask Nick, we peeled back some more layers. We got to the real issue at hand. You know, the more I thought about that call, to me, like the big takeaway of that call, like the lesson I hope we all learn from that call, regardless if you are trying to have sex with a couple of friends or if you're in an open relationship, that really wasn't the point. Like this call was a teachable moment for everyone who listened to this call, because this call was a reminder. It should be a reminder to us all. It was a reminder to me of just how good we are at convincing ourselves of things in general, and convincing ourselves of things that ultimately we're not comfortable with, we don't really want. What she wanted was a relationship with this guy. And what he wanted was an open relationship. He wanted the freedom to have sex with multiple women without having to give up the security and whatever he built with his original girlfriend. And being a young man in a long distance relationship, he was able to kind of navigate or convince the people around him to partake in this open relationship. And now that we are in 2020 and sex positivity is like this in vogue topic, especially with younger people, we all want to think that, okay, I'm an adult, I'm capable of having non-traditional sexual experiences. And like, yeah, listen, when you're young, that's definitely the time to experiment and have fun and yada, yada, yada. But like in real time, we were listening to this young woman talk who was from talking to her, seemed like very intelligent, very self-aware, it was obvious talking to her that she had her shit together, so to speak. And yet it was so clear listening to her about what her true feelings were. She was saying out loud how she would never choose to be in an open relationship. And she was saying out loud, that she would want to be with him if he would want to be with her. And it's like she didn't even hear those things. It was, I think, so obvious, certainly to me, but I think people listening, of what she really wanted deep down. And yet she's calling in with her question being about like, how more experimental can I get with sex? I'm in this open relationship now. Can I have sex with this friend? And can I explore that? But deep down, she just cared about this guy and felt like she was incapable of bringing this up to him because of this upfront expectation that he had set with her early on. Mm-hmm. And she was unwilling to see that because she wanted to convince herself that she was the type of person who could have that type of sexual relationship and kind of be like, yeah, I'm mature, I'm hip, I'm cool. And I remember, especially at that age, I mean, if, being a father for a few weeks now, and I kind of always thinking about River and as she gets older and lessons I want to teach her and things I struggled with as a young man, perspective and things like that. But that, when you are 18, 19, 20, I mean, shit, to some degree, it never stops. We will always be capable. I always say the biggest liars that ever lie to ourselves is us. Mm-hmm. I always say no one will lie to us more than we will lie to ourselves. So that's kind of what this is, but it's really just our ability to convince ourselves. Like we will manipulate ourselves into thinking that we are okay with things that we are not okay with. We can convince ourselves that we will want to do career changes, because because maybe we're just not, we can be unhappy with where we're at in our life and then convince ourselves of things that might fix that, but that we don't really want to do.
Absolutely.
It's kind of crazy and scary, but I think it's something we always have to be mindful of. And it is the importance of like share, especially when you decide you want to do something that's a big shift, you should definitely talk to like unbiased people, people not, I don't even know what but just trying to being aware of it, because it is crazy just how capable we are of convincing ourselves of things that we don't want. And we put ourselves in bad situations sometimes. And if all we did was just acknowledge that, maybe maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I'm just convincing myself, and we won't listen to ourselves, and we'll ignore our needs, and it's to me, it's so crazy, our ability to do that. Like, again, she was saying out loud, she couldn't even hear herself talk. This intelligent young lady, very self-aware lady, couldn't, really see what we saw that was so obvious. And I think that's just an important lesson to learn, just how, and we're all capable of this. It's just, I just find that to be, I look back when I was younger about how convincing I was to myself for things that deep down I didn't want to do. I thought it would fix a problem, or I thought it would maybe distract me from something else, a lot, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted, and yet like I would get in fights with people who'd be like, "Are you sure you want to, don't tell me what I think I want to do," and stuff like that. But we always have to be careful about that stuff. And I think that call was a great reminder to us all of our ability to manipulate, to lie, and to not have our own best interest in mind, which seems like crazy. Like, why wouldn't we have our own best interest in mind? Of course we have our best interest in mind, but she didn't have her best interest in mind. She was so convinced that this open relationship was no big deal and that she was mature enough to handle it. She was ignoring her actual needs, and her needs of like being able to speak up to a guy that she was falling for, and having feelings for someone, and trying to pretend that she wouldn't be totally hurt if he decided to just cut things off with her. And then started, competing with this girl. It was just kind of crazy. I think for a lot of people, it's probably easy to listen to that call and be like, "Oh, this is a crazy story." Maybe judge a little bit, because of course I would never be in an open relationship. It wasn't even about an open relationship or fucking two friends, or it was just about her ability to ignore her needs and convince herself of something. And that is something we're all capable of. And I think it's just a great reminder to us all.
I really resonated with this caller specifically because I remember, I've been with Danny since high school, and there were a lot of people who were dating in high school. And when it came time to go to college, open relationships were all the rage. Everybody was deciding, okay, we'll go to college, we'll be in an open relationship, you can hook up with whoever you want, but like, we're together. And when you're back in LA, or when we're both back in LA, we're together. And so when it came time for Danny and I to have that conversation, I did what this caller did. I convinced myself, you know what, it'll be okay. Like, if he wants to have an open relationship, like maybe it could work, maybe it'll be fun. I'll have the ability to go, party. And I was going to a party school. So I was like, okay, I'll be able to party and still have the security of a boyfriend. And then it wasn't until we sat down and had the conversation and we were like, okay, what do we want to do? And Danny said, I want to stay together and be exclusive, that I realized that that's what I wanted to. And I just like had convinced myself because I was anticipating anything.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you didn't want to lose him.
I didn't want to lose him. And so I was like, oh, you know what? It could work. Everybody else is doing it. Literally everybody else decided to do it who was together. And I mean, they all broke up.
Yeah.
Like, not a single one of them lasted. But yeah, and us staying together exclusively was the best thing because now we're married and everything worked out. But yeah, I resonated with this caller because it is easy to look at her and be like, what are you doing? But it is so easy to convince yourself of something when you want it so badly.
Yeah. And it wasn't the one open relationship she wanted. What she wanted was a chance to have a relationship with him. And this bought her time.
And she's so scared that if she has the conversation with him, he's going to end it because,
Which is what she
Well, that's the thing. I feel like anytime you do that, because I had people in college too who are like, oh, I'm in an open relationship with someone from back home. And it's like, they're just trying to like make the most educated decision or like avoid risk of losing somebody. But then it's like, certain people have these weird rules of like, oh yeah, like my girlfriend back home said that I can hook up with people, but I can't sleep with the same girl twice. It has to just be like a one and done so we don't catch feelings. Like, I was like, this is too much.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This particular caller is so clear she has feelings for this guy. And she wasn't calling about, should I sleep with two guys in the same friend group?
I kept forgetting during that call that there was another guy in the conversation.
I know. And he's in the same friend group, so it would just make everything worse.
Messy.
Interestingly enough, somebody wrote in with a question, but was in a direct response to the first caller in the cheating calendar episode of last week. She says, "Hi, Nick and household. I just listened to the first caller on episode 731, cheating calendar. I have a very similar situation with a couple of key differences. One, we are older. He's 35 and I'm 35, almost 36. Probably should know better at this point. We have also not had sex or oral sex. Also, I've told him now how I feel and actually taken a break from speaking and seeing him. It was only 2 weeks, but it was incredibly hard for me and I cried a lot and felt very down most days. Since we've reconnected, he reached out to me. It's been much better. More boundaries and less feelings, but it's still so hard not to be like, WTF is his problem? Why does he not want to be with me? It is so hard to find someone that I connect with like this, but I think since I feel the way I do and I've told him how I feel and he's done nothing about the situation, I have to walk away again. My issue is, how do I cut off that relationship when our friend group and lives are so intertwined? I feel like I almost can't walk away because then I would have to explain to other people why, and then either not go to social events or workout classes I know he will be at when I want to be at those things. Nick has said before there are other social events and other gyms, so I get it. Those are all feasible things to fix. I guess it's just the other people then that I don't know how to navigate about why I'm not hanging out or speaking to our other friends now. Any advice, I would be so grateful."
Stop acting like it's the end of the world. I mean, all she is talking about is deciding that this person that she's hanging out with that has mutual friends no longer is something she wants to be in. It's not that dramatic. I know it feels dramatic for her. And yeah, this, maybe going to a different gym or certain social settings is only temporary and only based off of her ability to handle the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like putting a pause. Hey, listen, this is just a little much for me. Why aren't we hanging out? Because honestly, like her ego doesn't want to acknowledge and feel embarrassment, that she doesn't want to say out loud. He doesn't want to make me a priority. He doesn't want to be with me. And that's really too hard for me to handle. But that's an empowering thing to say, all people, but especially women supporting women, just being like standing up for herself and saying, you know what? I deserve more. I deserve to be treated better. I'm getting crumbs from you. And to actually have the guts to say that, name it, and set the boundary. She should be proud of her ability to do that, not embarrassed. But we always feel embarrassed. It's like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to tell people. Tell them the truth. It's not that complicated. We tried. He doesn't want this, and I'm just decided to move on. And again, as I always say, if he was ever going to change his mind, that will be what changes his mind. Her showing her ability to live life without him. She's right now thinking of all the reasons why it's going to be so difficult to move on. And she's almost saying to her out loud, well, I'll just deal with it. I'll just accept less because I'm somehow stuck. She's not stuck. She's acting stuck. He can feel that energy.
Mm-hmm.
He's acting like she's stuck, which is why he's making decisions that he's making. And the moment she starts acting in reality that she's not stuck, that she has her own agency, that she's not dependent on this friend group, that like she can make other friends, and yeah, she can still hang out with these people. And if it is a little tough for the first 2 months to see him, to create some distance, doesn't mean she's firing the group. It doesn't mean she has to ever hang out again. She's just putting a pause for a little bit of a time while she just gets over it. That's all. Like, you can't, again, she's convincing herself that this is like the end of the world. And it's not. She's convincing herself she's stuck and she has no options. That's not true. So stop convincing herself. That'd be my advice. Just, okay, yeah. Like, I'm not saying quit a gym. I'm not saying quit these friends, but showing that you are capable of, not being so needy on friend groups, showing that you're capable of being independent, showing that you're capable of potentially making friends if that's what you need, and showing this guy, and quite honestly, anyone else, that like, you're going to be fine. Nothing will make you more attractive than anyone else to let them know, I don't need you. I want you. There's a difference. When someone acts like they need you, it's like, I don't know if I need you though. When someone acts like, I don't know if I need you, but I want you, like, and they show you that they don't need you, they're like, oh, wait, but I need you.
Yeah, I think too, time is such a healer. And as more time passes, it's going to feel less fresh, the rejection and the feelings that she has for him. And then eventually she'll be able to hang out at those gyms and not think twice,
Yeah.
and time will heal. And that's such a hard thing to think about when you're like in it. But then as a certain amount of time passes, you're going to look back and be like, oh, I'm so over that.
100%.
Our baby has never slept better. I mean, she's sleeping longer and longer every
Longer and
single
longer.
day.
Thank you.
To the Dreamland Baby weighted sleep sack.
We say thank you.
We say thank you. Honestly, it's a genius idea because they just like need to feel
secure.
Yeah. And that's what it does. And it's from shoulders to toes.
It's like a light hug.
It's a light hug. It's like a hand on their chest. It's what they need to just stay calm and relaxed and asleep.
And it's like she knows it's bedtime whenever we put the Dreamland weighted sack on her.
She does.
The Dreamland weighted sleep sack is a must-have for all new parents out there, or, for all parents with young children.
It also has a two-way zipper, so it's super easy for diaper changes. You don't have to like get them all undressed, wake them all up. You know what I'm saying? You just unzip the bottom of it.
It's so great.
Super easy.
And you zip her back up. It's great. I can't say enough of good things about the Dreamland weighted sleep sack. Truly. It's a must-have, an absolute must-have. We use it every night, every single night.
It's not even just like better sleep for us. It's deeper sleep for River. And I think that's what's so important because she doesn't just like wake up at the dog's barking or wake up at it. She's so comfortable. We truly love it. We use it every single night.
So if you are a parent with a young, cute little baby, you got to get yourself a Dreamland weighted sleep sack. Go to dreamlandbabyco.com and enter our code VIALL at checkout to receive 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. This offer is for new and existing customers. So again, go to dreamlandbabyco.com and enter our code VIALL at checkout to receive 20% off site-wide. You will love what you find at dreamlandbabyco.com. It's time to talk about the greatest mattress ever created in the history of mankind. We're talking about Helix mattresses, helixsleep.com to be more specific. Can't say enough amazing things about the mattresses that Helix Sleep is making. They have a mattress for everyone. Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Luxe Collection, the newly released Helix Elite Collection, a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers, and even a mattress made just for kids. Our daughter, River, will eventually be sleeping on a Helix mattress. I can guarantee you that. Nally and I sleep on the Moonlight mattress, in case you're interested. It's amazing how affordable the Helix Sleep mattresses are because they are so comfortable. It blows my mind that anyone would sleep on anything else. Truly, I don't understand it. Every hotel should have a Helix mattress. The only monopoly that should exist in this great country of ours is a monopoly for Helix Sleep. It is that good. They're that amazing. And right now, if you take my word for it, trust me, you will be happy. You will get 2 free pillows in addition to the best feeling mattress you will ever sleep on. And if you think what I'm saying is too good to be true, well, you still get to try it out and get a 100-night sleep trial on it. You get to try it, sleep on it, do whatever you want on it for 100 nights. And if you don't think what I think, well, you can send it back. And their mattresses come with a 10 to 15-year warranty, depending on the mattress. Truly, I can't say enough of amazing things about Helix. If you're in the market for a mattress, look no further than Helix mattresses. It's incredible. Can't say enough of good things. I love it. Helix is offering 20% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Just go to helixsleep.com/VIALL and use code HelixPartner20. This is the best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. helixsleep.com/VIALL. Use code HelixPartner20.
So something about me, I have long days and then I am lazy. I don't like to cook. I don't like to put any effort into it. I don't enjoy it. I just need to get through it. As such, I end up eating crackers and other things that don't constitute a meal. That's why I was so excited when Factor came to my door in this gorgeous box, because it was all of these different meals. Like I had like a chorizo, like chili. I had like a beef bowl. I had this pasta with broccoli. They taste like home cooked meals that are ready to go. They're fresh, never frozen. I got to heat them up in 2 minutes or less sometimes. And I have dinner ready to go. So there's now no excuse to be eating crackers or just skipping dinner altogether, because you can have a whole meal right there. And they sent me a little package of these wellness shots, whether it was like little green juices or some with like ginger and turmeric. So I'd start my days with a little wellness shot, and I've never felt or enjoyed life more.
Well, if you're busy, you hate cooking, you hate shopping, you got to check out Factor's delicious chef prep meals that are ready to go in 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals. Head to factormeals.com/NickViall50 and use code NickViall50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. This code NickViall50 at factormeals.com/NickViall50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. That's code NickViall50 for 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. All right, we got a great week lined up for you. We recorded in the desert over the weekend at Coachella, thanks to our friends at Patron. It's going to be a ton of fun. That's tomorrow, reality recap. And then we have a great episode of Going Deeper this week as well. Be sure to tune in for that. Don't forget to send another question at AskNick@theViallFiles.com for all things Ask Nick, texting office hours, mediation. You know what's up. All right, let's get to our callers.
Question time with Nick. Let's ask Nick your sexy questions.
How's it going?
Hi, I'm Tara. I'm 28, and my best friend no-showed my engagement party.
Okay, your best friend no-showed your engagement party. Explain to me the difference between a bachelorette and an engagement party. Oh, an engagement party, when you got engaged. Like Natalie and I had, like the day of our engagement. Okay, an engagement party. Okay, got you. There's so many parties when it comes to like weddings and getting engaged. I get the confused. I apologize. So you got engaged. Was the engagement party the day of your engagement, or was it like a few days afterwards? Walk me through like the logistics of this engagement party.
Yeah, so the backstory is basically me and my now fiance bought my ring in January. And then after that, he was kind of behind the scenes, like planning this engagement party to happen on the same day that he was proposing. So I didn't know like the day or the details or anything, but I kind of like just suspected that something was happening just because it's something we had talked about in the past, but I didn't have like 100% certainty that that's what he was doing on the same day, and I didn't know the day. But all of my friends are basically from college. We played a sport together in college, and they all know each other, but they're not all like friends. Like they're not all close. And so basically what happened is my fiance reached out to all of them, was like, hey, this is the plan, this is the day. And then they all kind of got together with each other and were basically coordinating it. Like, we're going to do this theme, we're going to decorate at this time. And it was at my house. And basically the plan was I was going to leave with my fiance and he was going to propose, and then we would come back and have like the surprise engagement party. So I didn't know at the time, obviously all the stuff happening, but I knew once I got engaged. Then like about an hour later, this friend called me and was like, hey, I'm not coming to the engagement party, basically like telling me she was going to miss it, and I wasn't there yet. So
wait,
then
did she spoil the surprise?
Yeah. So my fiance was very, very upset, and he's not somebody who like really gets upset, but the surprise aspect was very important to him.
Yeah, this isn't a surprise birthday party. This is an engagement. So like by definition, it should be a surprise. And even the non-planners out there, myself included, will kind of go, will go all out and try to obviously land the proposal. And so, he was very upset. And on the way back, he was just like, well, just walk in and pretend you're surprised. And and I did that, and it was great. And like, it's not to take away from anybody else who was there, but then all my other friends were like, what's happening? Like, where is she? Because they all knew she was supposed to be there. And basically in the conversation, when she told me she wasn't coming, she was in town. She usually lives out of state, like about 4 or 5 hours away, but she was in town for something else. So I was like, oh, it just happens to be the case that she was in town and couldn't make it. But then I found out from my other friends that that was not the case, and she was fully supposed to be there the whole time. So then that was just kind of like, wait, hold on, backtrack. So she doesn't live in your city, but she just happened to be in your city the night of your engagement party, which you knew. But I guess what is the information you found out, that she lied about actually being there, or what she was doing there?
Yeah, so she kind of I think minimized her involvement in knowledge of the engagement party. Like when we first talked, it seemed like she had just happened to be there and was going to try to stop by, versus like she was fully supposed to be there the whole day and chose to not come.
Do you know why she chose not to come?
She had other things, like she was in town for her family and for her in-laws. And I think it was her in-laws celebrating something. So she was like feeling obligated to be part of that. And they had just gotten married in October. But I mean,
and when you say best friend, like best friend is such a relative term. Sometimes you meet someone and it's really intense and you've been friends for 4 months and you're like, God, you're like my best friend, you know, and in some ways you are because you're hanging out so much or there's an intensity or whatever. And then other times, like, you know, I have my best friends for like people I've known since high school. And while I don't talk to them like every day like I used to, like they're still my best friends. Like, where are we in the best friend spectrum?
Yeah. So she is like one of my top 5 closest friends. We've been friends for about 12 years. And then we went to college together and we've stayed really close ever since. And I'm basically the last of my friend group to get married. And she was kind of like second to last. So her and I were kind of the unmarried and like not like having children and stuff like that. So we would go on trips together. Like we've spent a lot more time together in our adult lives just because our lives were more aligned. And then some of my other friends like got married several years ago and have kids. So like I hang out with them less and text them less just because of the availability. But yeah, so I'd say on the spectrum, like we are like best friends, like in the term of, I thought she was somebody who was like ride or die for me.
Have you confronted her?
Yes. So I did text her because she texted me like the Monday after and was like, "Hey, how did the party go?" And
She
I was
texted you to
actually
follow
really,
up?
yeah, she
Why-
texted me about how the party was.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I basically responded and I actually was like really thoughtful about it because I didn't want it to be like this big blow up, but it got to the point where like all my other friends were really upset too. And these other friends aren't friends with her. So it's kind of like I'm in the middle now of this kind of dispute. And I just said to her, like, look, like,
I appreciate your other friends who are not friends with her to like have your back, but they shouldn't be more mad than you. And I think you do need to be careful. Like, do you have a right to be annoyed? For sure. Clearly, she did not make you a priority on your day. And like, I don't know how great her in-laws are. I mean, super lucky to have Natalie's mom as my future mother-in-law. And I like to think that Natalie's super lucky to have my parents. But like, I wouldn't expect Natalie to miss her best friend's engagement because of my mom's birthday.
Right.
Like, that being said, like, you need to be careful that your friends aren't going to use this mishap by your other friend who they don't really have any loyalty to say, you should be mad, but what they're really saying is we're better friends than her.
Yeah, that's kind of what I feel like is happening right now, because when I had texted her, you know, I kind of just shared and was like, look, like it was great. It was so like special. Like, honestly, when I walked into my house and I saw my friends, like I cried just because those are like girls that you go through so much with and you get to experience this like huge day in your life and you get to see all your people. Like, it's just a really cool moment to be able to celebrate with them after something so big. And I just like fully expected her to be there. And I told her that it just like hurt my feelings. And I just was honest about it and was like, hurt my feelings. Like, and I actually said similar to what you just said, like it just showed me that it wasn't really a priority, because to me, like between a birthday and an engagement party, like it just wouldn't even be close. And
it's hopefully a once in a lifetime opportunity. And then like, depending on how close the friendship is, obviously, you know, your engagement party was about you and your fiance, but like for the people you know, are closest friends with, typically, especially women, because, you know, women spend more time thinking about, you know, an engagement or their wedding day than I guess the average guy. Those are the people you want to celebrate with and be like, hey, today's the day we talked about for so long. Ah! You know, shit like that. And then part of your engagement party was about A, her fucking up the surprise, and then B, why isn't she there? You know?
Yeah.
And part of being a really close friend is the obligation that you are going to be there for those special moments, because when you're not, it becomes like breaking news, you know, it becomes a distraction rather than, and you kind of have to recognize that as a best friend if you want that title, that you know, sometimes you have to miss things. That's understandable. But the fact that she went about it the way she did and kind of, yeah, like for her reasoning, she shouldn't have gotten a less, like her reasoning should have included like your fiance, for example, the way it should have gone down. If her reasoning was legit and it was a situation she just could not get out of and she was devastated she had to miss your engagement party, then that could have been communicated to your fiance. because she can be like, oh my God, what can I do to help? How can I set this up? I'm so sick, I can't be there, but like, I can't, whatever the reason why, whether you agreed with it or not. And then after you got engaged on your wedding engagement party, your fiance could have said, hey, listen, I got some bummer news. Becky can't make it. She tried her hardest. I know she's going to reach out, but just so you know, like she can't. And that way she wouldn't have ruined the surprise, and that should have been fully communicated, and your fiance and her should have been on the same page, but clearly she wasn't on the same page with your fiance. Clearly she wasn't even involved in the planning or having anything to do with the party. She didn't step up and try to help in any way, because otherwise she would have been more invested in it. It was just more like she knew it was happening. She knew it was going down, and she sent you an, oh, by the way, sorry I can't make it, without even knowing that it was a surprise, and was more worried about covering her ass than making sure that in addition to not making your party, she didn't ruin the surprise. Like, she needs to recognize the fuck up.
Yeah. And like, I'm a very confrontational person. So I had in so many words, essentially said something like that. Like, look, like, I'm like, I can move past this. Like, we've been friends for 12 years, but like, I'll move past it. You said things came up, you couldn't make it, whatever. Like, it's fine. Like, we can move forward. I just want to like hear that you understand, like that it makes sense to you that I'm upset and that I just wanted you to be there. Like, I'm not angry. It really came from a place of like, I wish you could have been there.
You wanted your best friend to validate your feelings.
Yeah. And then kind of, I was not very pleased with the response, because it was basically like, well, I just got married too. And like, you'll see that in this season, people will disappoint you. And it just kind of is what it is. And I just kind of was like, that's not what I wanted to hear.
She is absolutely right. But she's also saying, we're not as close as you want us to be.
Yeah.
And what did you say to her in response? Was it something like that? Because you're literally telling me that we're simply just not as close as I thought we were. Because you're right. I'm not like, you could say to her, I'm not delusional. Of course, I know, as I'm an adult, I know that people will disappoint me. I understand that. I just didn't think you would be one of those people, point blank.
Yeah. And I kind of was, I almost at that point was just trying to like appease the situation, because at the end of the day, like, I don't want to have a blow up fight about this. Like, I really don't. Like, I said my piece and just wanted to move forward from it. And I think the stickiest part right now is that I think I do still want her to be a bridesmaid.
Why?
But I know. And that's what my other friends are wondering too. Like, and they all know her. And it's just kind of like, do you want to have to wrangle somebody's attention and care during this season, or just like invite her, to the wedding and just let it be what it is?
I mean, what do you want your like? What I mean, I guess the question is like, when you select your bridesmaids, why? Like, what is the qualification? I think everyone's different. Are you celebrating them, or are they celebrating you?
Yeah,
because your friend,
I don't know,
literally told you. She basically told you to wear your big girl pants and was kind of like, grow up, we're not that close.
Yeah.
And I'm a married woman now. I don't got time for like college friendships or whatever you met. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what she said. And I don't know what your expectations of your bridesmaids are for your wedding. Natalie has expected very little from her bridesmaids, She got pregnant, didn't have a bachelorette party, We had some bridal showers, but Natalie didn't have a lot of expectations of them. So there was very little opportunity for her bridesmaids to disappoint her. Not that they would have. I'm not, but I'm just saying you have the right to have the wedding that you want, and you need to ask yourself what your expectations of your bridesmaids are, because she sounds like someone who doesn't want a lot of expectations of her. And she showed through her actions and the follow-up, of you just wanting acknowledgement that you were justified to feel the way that you did. And she basically told you that you weren't. And she told you that, listen, it's like, if you ask her to be your bridesmaid, you should assume that that if she says yes, first of all, that it will be on her terms and that she will make what she can make. And you need to know where you fall in line in terms of the priority, because it sounds like mom-in-law is on a higher playing field than you are.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I'm not sure what my expectations are. It's kind of like most of the people who are in my wedding, I was in theirs, and I love them all for different reasons. And so I think with this one in particular, like, last year, like she just got married. And so we just went through this whole thing on her end of it. And I was at everything that I could make it to. And if there was things out of state and I had a conflict like for work or something else, like I would tell her in advance and like, just be straight up about it. I don't think my expectation is like, you have to make everything or you have to focus 100% on my wedding. Otherwise, like you're done. But I think what I'm struggling with is like just the way that this happened, I think said a lot.
Yes, you are right. Her response is even worse than the action. And her missing it is actually, to me, third on the offense scale. The biggest offense, I think, is how she's handled what sounds like, in taking your word, your reasonable response to you communicating your feelings, and simply wanting some kind of acknowledgement. She couldn't do that. So that kind of set the tone. Number two is her ruining the surprise. It's like 1A, 1B. Because again, missing it, sometimes people have to miss shit. It's, that is happening. But how she went about missing it was so cavalier and so like not important to her. It really meant nothing to her. Most girlfriends want to help. Like, can I help? Can I be, reach out to the fiance and, what can I do? And if I can't even be there. And she didn't even know what time you were going to get engaged and didn't even think to like ruin the surprise or even not. Did she realize she ruined the surprise?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Like,
why didn't you tell her
I
that?
think she knew that I had like my suspicions of, something being planned after, but I wasn't totally sure if the engagement party was like happening then or like the next weekend or something. Like I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And my fiance was like trying so hard to keep it a secret. Like he literally, at one point we were getting gas or something and I'd gone inside and he took my phone and took the notifications off of my security alarms to like make sure that I didn't see people coming to my house. Like he really, really cared about it being a surprise.
Question: have you only communicated her via text since then, or have you spoken in person or on the phone?
Yeah, it's been text.
Okay, that's gotta stop.
Yeah,
because I should have asked you that sooner. That's a little bit like, stop fucking. This is a message to everyone. I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to my audience. Stop having important conversations via text with that's it. With your work colleagues, with your partners, with your friends, anything important where you, especially when it comes to feelings and emotions, especially when you're trying to communicate how you feel and you're expecting some kind of specific response, stop texting that shit. Because it's so easy to read that defensively. It's so easy to read it in the way that they want to read it. Your goal, as you pointed out via text, was to try to like be empathetic to her and not make her feel bad, but also you wanted some acknowledgement. But do you have the text that you sent her?
I do.
Can you send it to Justin?
Yes. And the other thing that I had kind of actually forgotten about until just now is that the two things that I couldn't make it to for her was one was her engagement party, but it was out of state and it was like very, very quickly after I got out of a very bad relationship. And I had just been honest with her and told her like, look, I don't know if I can do this right now. Like I'm emotionally like at ground zero and can't make the drive, like can't do this. And it wasn't a surprise. Like I had just told her like, look, I love you and I'm so happy for you and I want to be there for you. And I was actually there like right when she got back from her engagement as well. But I just didn't make it to the party, which was out of state. And so,
sure.
Oh yeah, but she remembered that. And so that like really upset me because I was just like, okay, I was trying to just be honest with you at that point, And then like at the time she was seemingly okay with it. But then kind of seems like she wanted to hold it against me.
Again, like,
later.
Yeah, it sucks that she wasn't there. But to me, hearing your story, her not being there is like on the bottom of the things that she could have done better. Do you have the message now?
We do. Do you want me to read it? Or
I want you to read it in the most sarcastic, passive-aggressive way that you can.
So it reads, I haven't seen you since your wedding day, and I was genuinely so excited and really hoping that you were going to be there because we never get to see each other. All I wanted was to hear you acknowledge that it makes sense to be upset that my best friend of 10 years didn't coordinate her day well enough to be able to be there. I never said you're throwing everything back on me, but I knew specifically that you would use it against me, that I didn't come to your engagement party 2 weeks after I got out of an abusive relationship and called off a wedding, and wasn't in a place mentally to be able to celebrate or leave my house for anything besides work without having a meltdown. And then I was on a work trip that I couldn't avoid for your bridal shower. It's just not the same ballpark at all as you simply not planning the day or being willing to tell your in-laws that it was important for you to be there. And choosing a birthday dinner over a one-time thing to celebrate my engagement, which you know is uniquely emotional for me, just shows me where your priority is, which is absolutely fine because that is your family. But I can't help but think that your roles reverse and I got married before you and you went through what I went through. I would have done anything to be there, especially with 6 weeks notice. So it's just hard to comprehend this in light of the rest of our relationship, the rest of our friendship, when you have shown up for me. I figure you would have just owned it and apologized. And
That's your bitchiest voice.
I don't have a bitchy voice.
I know. I don't think it matters because even listening to that message, like hearing that back, it seems kind enough.
It continues if you want me to read the rest.
You can keep going.
Okay, so it continues on to the next paragraph and it says, but at the end of the day, it's not a competition and nothing can change what has already happened. We've been friends for 10 years. I love you to death. And all I was trying to say is that it hurt me that you weren't there and that it seemed so careless and thoughtless to call me an hour after I got engaged and tell me you just didn't know where my house was and didn't plan right. And then you told me you would reach out Sunday and I got nothing but an Instagram story. Even so-and-so was surprised I wasn't immediately pissed when you called. I was on such a high it didn't sink until later. At the end of the day, nothing is going to change and what's done is done. I had certain expectations that weren't met and my feelings were hurt. You know as much as anybody that it's stressful and there's so many expectations on every little thing. Anyway, thank you for asking how it went. It was the hands down best day of my life and all I wanted to say is that I wished you were there.
There is almost zero chance he read that whole thing. Because as much as you thought that was like some sort of like empathetic, kind message, there are so many like sentences in there that, I mean, I don't know. What do you think hearing it back that could easily put her on the defense?
Yeah.
You were right to say everything you said, but like you can't, like sending this via text message, you didn't even get to the whole like understanding part until like the second paragraph. Meanwhile, she probably stopped reading that part.
Yeah.
And that was sandwiched in between, you know, a couple, again, justifiable things that you said. But if your goal was to try to get her to understand where you're coming from, you texting accusations, whether you're justified or not, is going to get that person receiving that message on the defense. And they're going to read it in a way that is defensive. They're not going to hear your voice. They're not going to see your body language. They're not going to, it's harder for someone to empathize with what you're trying to say when they don't have the benefit of all the means of communication people, you know, what do they say? Most communication's nonverbal type of thing, you know, whatever, body language, tone, things like that, which you lose in a text. And we have all these people, yourself included, this, you know, texting has destroyed communication. Best friends are having serious conversations via fucking text messaging. I mean, if someone sent me a text like that, there's no way I'd have read the whole thing. Call me an ass. What I'm just saying, that's would you?
Yes, but I think I'm like uniquely, like I'm very responsive on my phone and read things and respond basically right away. But
even if that message, or even if you got defensive and the first 3 sentences were a couple of like accusations that maybe at that time, you know, you would have thoughtfully and carefully read with a very kind of understanding and open to criticism POV.
Yeah, I mean, I guess thinking about it that way, probably not. Like if I got a text that like really pissed me off, I'd probably put it aside for a bit. But it was interesting hearing it back because that did have a different tone than it did like in my head when I wrote it. Because in my head when I wrote it, it was really like, I want to explain why I'm hurt and then I want you to understand that. But then when you read it, it's kind of like, I'm just like coming at her.
You sound mad. Yeah. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
You have the right to be mad. That is, just to be clear, you got to stop fucking texting this shit. The fact that you have not spoken to her in person, on the phone, via FaceTime, you have all these forms of communication at your disposal and you're sending text messages like a bot, you know? It's
yeah, and she is actually like one of my friends who like we have probably the most, it doesn't look like it right now, but we have like one of the deeper, like emotional friendships because we've shared a lot of things in terms of like our mental health journeys and stuff like that. And we've really bonded on that. And so I think looking at that text and kind of how things went, it was miserable for me because I was very anxious, like sending and receiving these texts that were very emotional. And then I'm sure she was feeling the same way. So I think it probably just exacerbated it even more, versus like if I had just called her and been like, hey, like I'm really hurt by this, without giving a whole kind of prelude to why I'm right.
Yeah. Because she didn't have the benefit of hearing your voice or seeing your face or seeing the sadness on your face. And it makes it harder to connect. It makes it harder to empathize. It makes it harder to relate. So whatever POV she went into that conversation with, she continued that POV, you know, and her POV is I got my own shit to deal with. And so it was very much, she wasn't in an empathetic, understanding, putting herself in your shoes type of mood. And that message certainly didn't help. It just made her like dig her heels into, you missed my party, you know, like you're calling me out for something you did for me. And this is a nuanced conversation, clearly, because, you know, just because it's not an apples to apples situation, you know, there's layers, as you pointed out, and you can't have a nuanced conversation via email or text. So that's my big takeaway. And so so the good news is kind of everything we said before this is maybe on the table, but like there may be some reconciliation possible still. I don't know, but it requires at least a minimum a phone call, but probably a FaceTime and ideally a face-to-face conversation where it's just like, hey, listen, like the biggest reason why I'm mad or even upset is because of how much our friendship means to me. And I wanted to articulate that. I'm sorry I sent it to via a message, but like, you know, I have all these other friends which you're not friends with. They're all mad at you and they don't understand you. And I don't want that to be the case. Like, do you even realize that like you did kind of ruin the surprise? Like, I just honestly thought that you would be more involved. And if nothing else, you would have known not to ruin the surprise. Either way, like, I don't want to feel like here's how the way you simplify it. It sounds like she totally understands your emotional and mental state of mind when she got engaged of what you were going through. And because of which, you not coming didn't make her question how much your friendship was a priority to you. It sounds like you reached out and said, and really went out of your way to explain why you couldn't make it. Did she text you or call you? She sent you a text too?
When she told me she wasn't making it, she called me.
She did call. Okay, well, good on her. Don't get into the weeds of, it's like, listen, at the end of the day, you not showing up and like handling the way you did, right or wrong, whatever your intentions kind of, and then your response to me expressing my frustration just made me feel like you've kind of outgrown us. And I hope that's not true, but it makes me sad if it is, but I don't want it to be. But that's how it felt. And I'm hoping we can fix it. But that needs to happen on a face-to-face phone call, a FaceTime. She needs to see your emotions. She needs to see your face. If you're listening, stop fucking having meaningful conversations via text because it is never delivered in the way you want. If it requires a fucking paragraph, then it's nuanced. If you have to explain yourself, if there's and this, but this, and also have you considered this? If there are layers, that is a conversation that needs to be had at a minimum over the phone.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. The other question that I had is, so ideally, like we come to a common ground and can move forward. What should I say to some of my other friends who are still very upset about it?
Okay, well, you know, you could say, listen, thank you for having me back. That means a lot. But, you know, I got this, you know. And I'm not making excuses for my friend, but like, you know, we've been through a lot. We're working shit out. Trust me. You know me. You know me that I'm capable of standing up for myself. I've worked it out with her. So just trust me. And like, it's one thing to have a friend's back. It's another thing to, you know, like if someone says, you know, short of, again, there's the exception of like, hey, listen, like you mentioned, and you would know because it sounds like, unfortunately, you have experienced an abusive relationship. And like, I'm sure you probably had friends say, hey, you know, we're concerned. And in those situations, yeah, friends, it is important for our friends to speak up, you know, and say things. but I don't think your friends are worried about this type of situation. They're just like, they don't like how she handled it, you know? So they should be able to trust that you are capable of speaking up for yourself, handling your friendships, and that while you appreciate their consideration, that like you're asking them to like not continue to hold this grudge because you're not. But that's assuming you work through it, you know? So let's focus on the issue at hand. And if it gets to a place where you want it to go, then that conversation with the other friend should in fact be easier. Because if you are covering for her, they'll sense it. You know, just like when you know what it's like to cover for a bad boyfriend.
Yeah.
So hopefully when you do have this conversation with the other friends, you won't be covering for her. You will simply just be saying you worked through it because hopefully you did. And if you don't work through it, then, you know, if you call her up, if you get on the FaceTime and you lead with love and you say, hey, listen, the reason for I'm calling, and by the way, I'm really sorry that I expressed my frustrations via text. That wasn't the best way to do that because, again, like the reason I'm most upset about is how much I care about our friendship, and the feeling of you not being there made me feel about, you know, where our friendship is. And so that's where this is coming from. And you start there. And then you can get in, you know, to your frustrations, and what you hope to get out of it is just like, listen, it just made me feel like I wasn't a priority. And like, it's hard for me to understand how I was based on how it all went down. And you can have your back and forth and you guys can speak your piece, but you got to go into that conversation. Every conversation, like nuance, needs to start with some upfront expectation. What is the, you know, not to sound corny, what's the goal of the conversation? You know, especially if you're going to go into a conversation that's going to have some conflict. Hey, you know, I had a sensitive conversation with a sibling and I wanted to ask them some personal questions. I wanted to ask them some questions I wasn't sure was going to trigger them. But I said, hey, listen, just so you know, at the end of the day, I love you. I'm here to support you. Like whatever you want to do, I'm here to have your back. But if it's okay if I ask you some questions and have a better understanding of what's going on, I'd love to do that. You know, me starting that conversation that way really helped, as opposed to me going in and be like, hey, what are you doing? What's going on? Why are you doing this? Like, don't you realize how this is affecting other people? Yada, yada, yada. You know what I'm saying? But me starting it off by saying, I hope this conversation ends with us being reconnected, being on the same page, you feeling like you have my support, yada, yada. Like stating the mission of the intention. Because sometimes to get where we want to go, it requires a little mess and a little bumps in the road. But if that person realizes what the goal of the conversation is, that helps. Not always, you know, sometimes it still might get derailed, but people don't usually start off by saying what they hope this confrontation is going to lead to.
Yeah.
You know?
That's really helpful.
So step one, reach out to the friend. Even, like, do you have plans of seeing each other at all?
Not really. I mean, we are out of state, so usually when we see each other, it's like a planned thing, like a group trip or somebody's bachelorette or something.
So
but
send her a text and be like, "Hey, sweetie, you know, I don't know. I'm sure you're busy, but I miss you. I'd love to catch up. Do you have time for a FaceTime in the next couple of days?"
Yeah.
Don't even like preface it like we need to talk. Try to keep it chill.
Yeah, I think that's maybe part of it too, is because I think in my head I had this expectation that like I would get to see her, and I haven't seen her since her wedding day.
Yeah.
When I was in her wedding, and for her wedding, like we were talking all the time. Because I was a bridesmaid, I was helping with a bunch of stuff, so I was kind of just like excited, you know, for that part to kind of start for me, and like I just felt uniquely hurt by that. And there was other friends who couldn't make it, but I think you're right that like I had certain expectations in my head, like just for her, and I think it would be good to just have that conversation.
Yeah, and it will be very telling one way or the other, because either your other friends will be justified, or you will be able to explain to them why, as much as you appreciate the support, they can relax, and it won't come across as you covering for her and making excuses.
Right.
Because right now, that's what it sounds like to them.
Yes, it is. And the other friends are a lot more intense, like no bullshit. So, like, you know, what is going on with this? So I think that'll be a good course of action for sure.
Yeah. She needs to feel and see your frustration without it coming through just words that sound like accusations.
Yeah.
And that is impossible to do via text or email. I mean, when someone sends you a long text, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God. Here, what long text has ever in the history of text been great news? If you're out there, let me know.
Long good morning text when you're a kid.
That you have to scroll, like, fuck, holy shit. Never. And yet we are so quick to just, and then, you know, and get so frustrated when we don't feel heard or seen via text message. First of all, you know, can't feel seen via text. They're just reading. So that's my biggest advice and biggest takeaway of this call is stop doing that. And I think when it, you know, remember that, especially when it comes to your relationship and when you get married, like, don't be fighting with your partner via text. You know, if things escalate, I'll talk to you when we get home. I love you. That's all you need to know right now.
Yeah.
We'll get this fixed.
Thank you.
So, all right.
Thank you.
Well, I am dying to know what happens.
Okay. I'll give you an update.
We can have, also, if you want to have this conversation together with her on a Zoom with us, we will mediate it.
Okay.
Would love to. Oh my God. She'd be like, hey, this sounds crazy. Do you want to? That I would love to do. Because hopefully after you have this conversation with her, she says something like, you know what? I see where you're coming from. I have definitely been a little like preoccupied with my own love story, but I probably could have been a better friend.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if you want her to try to empathize with you, you know, a great trick is to find something where you could acknowledge a moment where you wish you could have done something differently to her. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a peace offering. Seeing this now, I wish I could have done this differently. But again, the goal of your conversation when you speak to her is to communicate to her how important your friendship is and how much it means to you and how it is different than your other friendships and that you are afraid of losing that. That's the goal. The goal isn't to call her up and yell at her and to scold her. We have to communicate that as adults, you know, because when we get yelled at and we get lectured, we just turn into children, all of us.
Yeah.
We go to our kind of subconscious childlike brain and it's just like, I didn't do that. Or yeah, but you did this. And it's just, you know, it's like, am I talking to adults or are these 6-year-olds texting or, you know, 12-year-olds or are these adult women? You know, you probably can't tell the difference in most, you know, text conversations. So, all right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, can't wait to find out how it goes.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Well, listen, we talk about therapy a lot on this show. I mean, almost every person who calls in, we're always recommending therapy to help them deal with whatever issue they're dealing with. Listen, it's always great to just talk out your issues with a mental health professional that BetterHelp can bring to you at your convenience. What's so great about BetterHelp is they're helping break down some of those barriers that are causing people to avoid and start therapy altogether. Whether it's the cost, it's more affordable than in-person therapy, the convenience. Well, listen, BetterHelp is working with more therapists every day to help ensure that you can connect with a therapist that's right for you, someone that you connect with, feel safe, feel seen, feel heard, and just feel comfortable with. Can't say enough of good things about BetterHelp and how it's helping people get into therapy. People who have been so reluctant. And listen, there can be so many benefits from just, you know, talking through your issues, whether it's just general anxiety, maybe you feel like, you know, disconnected with where you're at in your life, maybe it's relationship problems, money problems. It really doesn't matter what those problems are. BetterHelp is helping thousands of people deal with whatever mental health struggles they're having today. Do yourself a favor and let BetterHelp help you jump into therapy. And like I said, if you don't, you know, connect with the right therapist right away, no worries. BetterHelp will help you find the therapist that you feel safe with. You can kind of shop therapists with BetterHelp. And they're working with so many therapists every day, they make that part super easy. You also can do voice to voice. Everything about BetterHelp is super easy and convenient. All you got to do is go to BetterHelp.com. You take a quick assessment, let them know what type of therapy you're looking for, what problems you want to talk about, and they will match you with a mental health therapist that they think is right for you. And again, if you don't find that you're vibing with that therapist, that is no problem. You can keep searching through their database until you find someone that you think is perfect for you. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/VIALL today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/VIALL. Hey, all you bread babies out there. We love our bread. And sometimes we're always told, oh, well, you know, look, carbs, carbs, carbs. Oh, not carbs. Hero bread, you get 0 to 1 grams of net carbs, 0 sugars, and high in fiber, delicious, flavorful, wonderful bread. The soft and fluffy experience you love when enjoying a fresh BLT savoring breakfast burrito or mouth-watering cheeseburger. Hero bread makes the same delicious favorites free of consequence and compromises. They've made a carby, empty calorie bread product into fluffy, delicious versions that include no net carbs, 0 grams of sugar, and fewer calories, plus protein and fiber.
Also, something I love is they like keep it fresh. So there's something for every craving. I love to make a wrap, like they mentioned, like those cheeseburgers. So they not only have sliced breads, but they have buns, they have tortillas, and they also have monthly small batch drops of indulgent flavors and favorites like 2-gram net carb hero croissants. Like, how great is it to make a croissant sandwich? Yum. Or the 1-gram net carb hero cheddar biscuit. So you will never be bored or hungry when it comes to hero bread.
There are a lot of bad bread options out there, but not hero bread. If you want to keep enjoying the bread that you love while reducing how much carbs and sugar you're eating, don't give up being a breadhead. Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use our code VIALL at checkout. Again, that's VIALL at HERO.co. Hero.co. How's it going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. What's your name?
My name is Emma, and I'm 27.
How can we help, Emma?
I recently had the first month of a great relationship, and it ended because of my sexual history, namely a threesome that I had.
Okay, so you met a guy. You've been dating for about a month.
Yeah.
And as the first month dating of eventually you get to the whole like oral history of your dating history, yours included a threesome from the past.
Yeah, from about 2.5 years before I met him.
And he decided that he couldn't possibly date someone like you anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I mean, I guess the short answer is good. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like the short answer is you found very quickly his open-mindedness, where you guys are sexually, you know, how sexually compatible you are. You know, you learn that about yourself. I don't know. We'll talk more. This is regardless if you ever want to have another threesome, but clearly you are someone who is at least open to trying new things sexually. And when it comes to a committed monogamous relationship, whether there are threesomes included or not, and most don't, you might be open to trying and exploring new things because after fucking for the same person for like so many years, it gets a little vanilla. And he is deeply offended that you had you know what I'm saying? So you learned a lot about him by this decision. And as much as you feel judged, as much as you feel upset, and as much as you might feel like you want him to better understand why he shouldn't be mad, the fact that he handled it this way is incredibly revealing for a guy you've only known for 4 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
So without me knowing any more information, I think it's important that you recognize that.
Yeah. And I think a detail that is important to include is that this threesome was with 2 of my superiors at work. That happened on a conference. And so it was kind of, I think the professionalism piece of it has been important to him as well and made him question my judgment. But at the same time, this happened a couple of years ago. Like I was in my early 20s. I was very single. And it was just one of those situations that I found myself in. I've always kind of wanted to have a threesome. And so I was like, well, now's the time.
And was it 2 men?
No, a man and a woman.
Okay. I was curious. Only because like had it been 2 men, weirdly enough, I'm slightly less critical of him because like 2 women, you know, your typical like horny guy would be like, oh, he had sex with a woman, but like 2 guys are deeply offended. Like you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that would have looked worse on his resume if he judged you even more for 2 guys. But when was the last time you spoke with him?
So I'm currently on vacation right now with my parents. And so he dropped me off at the airport on Saturday morning, 4 a.m., kissed me goodbye. And then 3 days later sent me a text saying that he couldn't see himself dating somebody who had made the choices that I have made. So we last spoke about 2 days ago. He ended it in a text. And we were kind of going back and forth over text. And I just said, like, let's just table this. Like, this is not an efficient way to communicate. And I said, maybe let's talk when I get home. But for now, I don't want to talk to you for the rest of my trip.
And how old is he?
33.
How old are you?
I'm 27.
And what was like the first few weeks like?
It was like amazing. Like I thought that I had met the right person finally. Like we were spending a ton of time together, going on like good dates, spent the weekend away together, and we're talking a lot about the future. And I really felt, and we were both talking in this way, like, you know, I'd found the right person for me. Like he listened to me so well. He was so considerate of me. He was coming to support me in events at work. And
what do you do for work? What does he do for work?
I'm a teacher. He's a lawyer.
How did this come up? Like, what was the conversation that brought this up?
I think it was just kind of like you said early in dating, you know, you talk about where you've been and who you've been with and what you've done. And I think we just were talking about threesomes. And I said that I had one. And
well,
then
yeah, but how did the topic of
story
threesomes get brought up? Like, did you ask him if it are a threesome or vice versa? That's kind of important. I'm curious.
I don't remember exactly. I think it was kind of a conversation of like, you know, like where's the weirdest place you've had sex? Like just kind of like how naughty have you been in your life?
Okay.
And it was just one of the questions of that conversation.
What was the naughtiest thing you learned about him?
Well, he's had like a huge number of sexual partners, or I mean, not to put any judgment on that as well.
But he has been loose with his dick.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think that's something that's frustrating me as well, is a lot of his experiences came from kind of his early 20s. And in the last couple of years, you know, he's gotten to the point where you realize you don't want to have sex that makes you feel shitty anymore. So he's weaned off of that. And I feel like I've arrived at that too, but he's about 6 years older than me. So it's just like me having that realization has happened more recently. And so he sees this as being like recent history and very telling of my character, which I don't feel like it still is a choice that I would make today.
How
at
is this
27.
telling of your character? What is your character? I mean, like, that's
Well,
what I like. Well, because it's the colleagues, because you.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with threesomes, you know, but like, short of you going out and just propositioning fucking random strangers, like you kind of need to know them, you know, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a one-time thing. It's the only time I've ever done it. And it was just kind of one of those things I've always been curious about. And I found myself in that situation. So I was like, well,
do you even think of it as a mistake?
I just think of it as something I've done. No, I don't think of it as a mistake.
Okay. Well, that's important that you know that, because I don't want you to apologize for something that you don't think is a mistake. Because part of it, like, you know, I don't know if you have any plans on trying to communicate with him afterwards when you get back from the trip or speak your piece. But let's say, for example, this wasn't a threesome. Let's say this conversation was about like, hey, there's something I want to tell you. Like, I did something in my past and like kind of fucked up, but like I definitely learned a lot from it. But you know, like I didn't want to tell you, but like it, you know, that in itself is a normal conversation. We've all made mistakes. We've had to apologize. We've had regret. Part of life is, you know, being, like you said, trial and error, learning some things, you know, maybe having a low character moment. I'm not suggesting what you did was, and then acknowledging what you learned from it. And the fact that you told this story and without any context, he's decided to judge you and tell you what it says about your character and who you are as a person, without any consideration that maybe this is something, like you said, was part of like who you are and your journey. And like, he might not have had a threesome with coworkers, but you know, hey, it's 2024. And is he willing to say that every sexual experience he's ever had with a woman out at bars drinking alcohol, that maybe, you know, if he went back and did an inventory or reflection, that he might have to say to even someone, even with he had the best of intentions, like, hey, you know, sorry if I came around as a little crass, you know, did he every woman that he hooked up with, was he emotionally considerate to that vulnerability of them, you know, getting naked in front of him? Was he so considerate of their feelings to make sure that if he was having sex with women, that they were on the emotional same page and that he didn't leave anyone feeling led on, whether he intended to or not, you know? And maybe it could have required better communication, but is he 100% certain that with all of his sex, that he did it all right and he didn't make any mistakes and that he hasn't learned anything from that?
Well, and that's the thing too, is before I left, I was kind of asking more questions about just the number of partners he's had and what kind of that motivation was and how that's different now, in order to protect myself as well. And he said, he was like, like I would just invite them over, they would show up, we would have sex, it was great. And listening to him and finding out more information about that, being on the other side of it, because we've had some long conversations about my history and things he's unhappy with. And hearing it, I was like, okay, this is kind of detached. This isn't who you are now. And I can see that, and I can see that you're past that point. And I feel like I'm past this point. Like I probably wouldn't make that. Well, I wouldn't make that choice today, but it was something that I wanted to do in my life. And I was single and I was like, well, might as well do it now. So yeah, being on the other side of like the not cross-examination, but like, kind of when you're asking questions about things that stick out from a partner's past, I was like, what, I can feel comfortable with this. Like, I get it. I've been there. You make you make different choices in your early 20s than you do as you grow up.
Yeah. Did you take any pictures with this guy?
No. You really want to see him? I have pictures of him.
Yeah, no, I want to see it.
I
want to see a pic. I want to see what this Judgy McGoo looks like. I mean, again, this guy, he's a hypocrite. Like how this guy's out there was an absolute fuckboy for a long period of time. And I am not accusing him of anything nefarious, but again, you can't have that much meaningless sex without risking, leading someone on accidentally.
Mm-hmm. I just put a picture in the chat.
You could do better. Did you deliberately send me a bad picture of him?
That's the picture I was sending all my girlfriends. I thought he looked cute in that picture.
Cute, maybe. So? A little goofy. I mean,
I like him goofy.
I'm being mean,
Yeah.
Well, how can I help? Like, what were you hoping to accomplish with this call? Are you wondering if you should reach out to him afterwards? And if so, what you should say? Like, where could I be the most helpful?
So I guess I have a couple questions specifically related to him. So where we've left things is just, I said, I don't want to text about this. I'm on vacation. I'm going to enjoy my trip. And I said, I'll text you when I'm home and maybe we can talk. Because what hurt me was that he ended it in a text message. I found that really hurtful because we have had a very, like a pretty intimate relationship. Like we've built some rapport for sure. And so I want to kind of know how going into that conversation, if I should have that conversation and going into it, how should I approach it? And then my other question is kind of like moving forward in dating. Do I need to think of this as a stain on my resume? I think I am kind of a person who can have a tendency to overshare. Should I approach my history differently with future partners so that I can hopefully find somebody who is going to want to be with me?
Well, I'm going to answer your second question first. And the answer to your second question, I'm going to go back to what I said first, is you have to acknowledge the information you learned about him from how he handled this. And I know that's very hard to do because he's making you feel judged, and he is judging you, and he is telling you that you're not good enough at him and suggesting that you fucked up and made a mistake and you should feel regret and remorse and blah, 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 and that you don't. That even says, all these things. And that's why I asked, do you think it was a mistake? And you don't. And you shouldn't. Listen, threesomes aren't for everyone. Being sexually adventurous isn't for everyone. You also learned that he was a hypocrite. Also, maybe a little sexist. Not even maybe. You mean to tell me he has no buddies who've had a threesome?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he has.
No
he
bros?
Does have friends. Yeah.
And you think to tell me he wouldn't be friends with them? Because to be clear, this guy's like, I can't have you in my circle. Like I can't surround myself with someone who makes poor choices like that. And he can't say, oh, well, no, this is about love and about potential marriage. I mean, are you hanging out with men who you question their judgment? Like that, it's hugely hypocritical and sexist. And it's pretty safe to say he is judging you more because you're a woman. Unless you can guarantee that he doesn't associate with anyone, man or woman, if they've ever had a threesome with a colleague.
Yeah.
And then immediately if he finds it out, he would break up with that friend the same way he broke up with you.
I feel like, and I'm curious for your thoughts of this as a man, I wonder how much of this is maybe coming from insecurity. And in my experience, men, I think, can get a little bit freaked out if they think that the woman they're dating has more or more diverse experience than them. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Not really.
Or from your experience as a man, I guess.
I have never. Listen, I know people have a lot of different opinions about me and probably my even sexual history, especially if they learned about me on The Bachelor, because for Bachelor World, I was one of the more like sexualized characters on their show, and like conversations around sex happened because of me. But like, I have definitely always been a quality over quantity type of person. I'm not an angel, by any stretch of the imagination. But put it this way: when I went on The Bachelorette, I was 33. And one of the dates on that season, which I actually wasn't on because I don't want to one date, it was a lie detector test. And one of the questions of the lie detector test was, had you slept with more than 20 people? And I remember most of the guys like failed. And at that point in my life, I needed less. All I needed was my two hands to count. And that's just because I was mostly in serious relationships in my 20s. It wasn't
right.
Where was I going with this? I guess my point is like, I've always been very confident and adventurous when it comes to sex. And I've always, I've been adventurous with sex, and therefore I have been attracted to women who also have, and I've never had a woman make me feel inadequate or less experienced. And that's not because I knew they had less experience than me. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a point in my life in my mid-30s, I was never been the whole like, how many people have you slept with type of thing.
Yeah.
But had I had that conversation with a lot of people I had dated in my early 30s, chances are I would have had a smaller number than them. And that just never bothered me. And that's just me. And unfortunately, I don't think that is the case for a lot of men.
Yeah.
So I can't really speak to that.
How would you suggest that I talk about, do I talk about this going forward in dating? Like, is this a deal
I don't think you should hide it.
For...
I don't think you should lie about it. I don't think you should let this guy make you feel like you did something wrong. I'm not saying you go and brag about it and talk about it on a first date. Do you need to tell men this? No. Like, you had a threesome years ago. I think going over your sexual history when you start dating, it eventually needs to happen at some point. But like, Nally and I don't know every detail of our past. We didn't sit there and go, all right, well, tell me everybody, tell me every fucking detail. Questions have been asked, answers have been given. But it was like on a do you want to know basis. So you don't owe it to anyone to be like, I need to tell you something. You don't. Yeah. But if someone says, hey, like, let's get into the whole, like, tell me about your past. Like, what are you into? Have you ever had a threesome? And if you get asked a question, I think you're honest. And now, next time that comes up, you can be like, well, to be honest, I'm a little reluctant saying this because I said this to one person, they broke up with me. You can scare the shit out of them, like you're about to tell them that you like it when men pee on your face. And then you can be like, well, I had a threesome. And most guys can be like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like you can scare them. But no, I don't think you should hide it. It's nothing you should be ashamed of. You did nothing wrong. And I can't stress enough that you learned way more about him, about how he handled this than he's ever learned about you, and you have way more reasons to judge him for his character than he has to judge you for yours. And you're right. I don't, maybe this is a projection. Maybe this is more about him feeling inadequate, knowing that maybe he's thought and tried and wish he could have a threesome, but no, he just doesn't have the sexual prowess to pull it off. I don't know. We can only speculate. So, and I think that's the most important thing I want you to take from this conversation is that as much as he has tried to judge you, that's a him problem, really not a you problem. And you have only dated him for a month. And whatever excitement that you felt about him and the relationship in the first month, it's only been a month. Clearly, you had a lot more to learn. And you learned very quickly that he is hypocritical, judgmental, and sexist.
Yeah.
And if you were on a dating app and a guy in his bio said, I'm a little hypocritical, slightly sexist, and judgmental, you would have just kept on swiping.
Yeah. It's just too bad because I felt like we did have, I guess transitioning into my next question, which is, do I have this breakup conversation with him? Because we haven't really talked. He's just texted me.
What would you want to say?
I don't know. I think he's going to regret this. I think that we could have been a good couple. And I think if he would just get out of his own way and let me, continue to develop a relationship with him, I think that I think it could have worked out really well for us. I saw a lot of really good compatibility indicators between us. We had very good chemistry as well. But I want to let him know how hurtful it was for him to have done this in a text, because he approached it so altruistically. Like, I need to tell you this now so that it's not hanging between us all week and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I know that you dumped me in a text because you didn't want to think about it this week. Like, you just wanted this checked off on your Sunday afternoon. And so I kind of want to make that point, but I know that's just probably coming from me feeling hurt. Probably wouldn't.
You have the right to speak your piece and defend yourself and say what you want. I just caution you on what you can expect from that conversation. I don't think anyone should ever say you're going to regret this. Let them realize it. You saying it takes away your power so much.
Right.
It's something they're going to have to realize down the road. And then, as they say, the best revenge is living well, I always get a kick out of people. Like, I'm a resilient person. I've been through a lot of that shit that I've been through is public and people know about it. A lot of it is not, but I always keep fucking grinding. I keep going, and I'm living my best life, and I couldn't be happier with where I'm at. And I have no idea what exes of mine, how they see our relationship, like the past, or they look at me now. But I know I have no regrets. I know I don't look back, and I know my life looks great. And I'm hoping for all my exes that I'm not a thought in the world. But it just is only to say that, like, if I do come up, I'm giving them very little to work with when it comes to feeling like my life got worse after I left them in my life, or they left me, or we just stopped hanging out. My life definitely did not get worse from past relationships. My life has only gotten better from past relationships. And that is evident by how I've lived my life. And so you will never get the satisfaction of hearing him say that, most likely. So I caution you to not say that to him. You will never get the satisfaction that you think you're going to get by saying this. It'll make you feel worse.
Yeah.
That being said, if you want to reach out to him and communicate your frustration, you have every right to do that. But you should go in there with very little expectations.
Yeah.
And I think you should be very measured. And when you do that, and you should remain calm, and you should almost write down your points that you wanted to make. And then the main point is just like, listen, it was really, use words like disappointed, hurt, sad, frustrated. It was really disappointed to have you, if you wanted to end this thing, fine. I was really excited about our potential, but like the fact that you chose to go about this via text, honestly, it was disappointing to learn that that's how you handled difficult conversations. That's a great way of saying that, right? You could say you breaking up with me over text showed who you are as a person, and that sounds almost like retaliatory. You could just say that I was really disappointed to learn, because that's what he you use his language. I learned this about you. I don't know if I can move forward knowing what I know now about you. Well, I'm really disappointed to find out that, like, you handle difficult situations via text messages, and and you just say that.
Yeah.
Furthermore, like, that whole conversation when I was open up and vulnerable to you, like, is really disappointed. The first thing you decided to do was judge me for past experiences, because we both shared past experiences about things that we did when we were younger to communicate, where we have gotten to where we are now. And while I don't necessarily regret that decision, I have learned a lot from that decision. And you decided to decide that defined me entirely as a person, without any consideration into what your actions have said about you. But I was willing to show you grace, and you decided to just show me judgment.
Yeah.
And I guess that's,
and even because
really,
we had a whole conversation about this probably a week after it first came up. And I felt like what was important to explain to him was, how are my choices different now? So that was the conversation we had about it, is because he was worried about my boundaries in general, which I would say, I wish your podcast had existed when I was 19 or 21, when I was younger and going through these things and didn't have good boundaries. But I was talking about, like, this is how I set better boundaries now. Like, this is what my relationships in the last 2 years have looked like. This is how it's different. I've asked for what I've needed. I've left relationships when I haven't gotten that. Like, and I just feel like he can't move on from this one isolated incident from years ago. And so then when I kind of replied to his text, like I felt upset. And then he came back with like, I think you have like insecurity issues and I think you have validation. You need to be validated or whatever.
He said this
and
to
you're
you?
a people pleaser. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we all need to be validated. Like that's the human experience, is looking for
Yes.
validation. And like, of course I am a people pleaser, but like, I also recognize these things about myself. So I felt like he kind of like, I wanted to defend or respond to.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would have been like, what do you think it says? Like, what did all the meaningless hookups that you had? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Was that not for validation?
Yeah. Yeah. So
how much sex?
Because I didn't really respond to that.
How much sex? I would ask him like, how much sex? How many names of women you've had sex with do you not remember?
Yeah, that would be a good question to ask him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do I bother trying to defend myself, or do I just accept that this is over and let it die? Like, what's the most graceful way to go about this?
The most graceful thing is just to move on.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't. Listen, I'm not telling you not to. I think it makes a lot of sense for you to get back from this vacation and call them up and speak your piece. Your expectations shouldn't be to, well, one, I mean, if you called him up and said all the things you said, and let's say he responded with like, you're right, I got caught up and I shouldn't have judged you. Can we get back on the same page? What would you do? And that's all he said. That's all he said.
I don't know. Like, I do really want to be with him, but I feel like I've started the acceptance process of it. I think seeing that
it's not registering with you what this says about him as a person yet.
Yeah.
You still see him in these rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
I'll really be interested in what you think about him when you listen to this episode back.
Yeah, I will be too, I guess.
Because again, everything I know about him is from your words. Keep in mind.
You're right.
In the funny in the funny picture you showed me. I mean, he's a handsome enough guy, but this guy's you can do better.
Thanks, Nick.
Mostly because what I know about how judgmental he is.
Yeah.
Again, and sexist.
Yeah. And I guess I would say too, like I have a big mouth. I probably have a tendency to overshare more than I undershare. And this strong reaction to this part of my history was making me feel really nervous about anything else I had to bring up. And I guess I wouldn't want to feel that way.
No, he's not
in a relationship with a person.
He's not your person. It seems pretty clear to me. And he would need to do a lot of work. And quite honestly, there's, I hate overusing words that are overused, but there's a lot of projecting going on here. It sounds like, and not a therapist, but just a guess on my part. If anyone needs to do a lot of work, it's people who are comfortable with who they are and don't require validation and have done the work on themselves. They're not judgy like he is. They don't do what he just did. They're not triggered by hearing about someone having a threesome, especially if they, it'd be one thing if you told me like, I was half expecting you to be like, he's really a nice guy. He's a nice guy, but he's super religious. He's old school. I'm not that religious, but like he was cool with that, but he's pretty conservative. And like, no, this guy had a whole like fuckboy era of, I just invite girls over. They didn't fuck me. I couldn't even help myself. My dick's so good. Like, he doesn't realize how much of a douchebag he sounded like. And I'm not saying every guy who goes through a fuckboy era is doing it because they're insecure, but like you said, like we've all done things for all of us, Yeah. That's why we like to get hit on, even by people we're not interested in. We just like to know we can. And so it sounds like he has the work to do. And that's not for you to say, by the way. So if you were...
I should just focus on my own experience, and I felt hurt by this.
Yes.
I really liked you, and I wish that you would have considered. It felt like he didn't consider my feelings in sending this text. It felt like one more thing to cross off his Sunday afternoon to-do list, like close that book, start the week fresh kind of thing.
If you are going to reach out to him and speak your piece, I want you to be calm and measured and thoughtful and not easily triggered, because it's kind of showing him through your actions, just like how mature you are in handling this. And just calmly point it out. It's just like, it was incredibly disappointing to see you handle things the way you did. I can't tell you how to think about me sharing my past, but the fact that you chose to let it define who you think I am as a person without any consideration for what I might have learned from that experience. And again, I think you point out, like, we both shared a lot about our sexual past, and we both shared a lot about things that, things we did in the past that we might not do present day. It was disappointing for me to show you that grace and for you to only show me judgment.
That's a really good line.
Because
yeah, okay, I'll use your word.
And I think you just say that and you leave it at that. And you can probably even send that in a text.
Yeah. I felt like the things that he was bringing up once I responded to him, like I was kind of like, like, fuck that. Like, it's so inconsiderate for you to have texted me that. So I didn't just accept it. And I felt like then he right away started using the things that I've said. I worry that I am a people pleaser, and I worry about.
And you could say,
and be like that got thrown right in my face the second I was like, "How dare you text me?" So insensitive.
And you could say, furthermore, additionally to that, it's getting these text messages referring to things like, to have you weaponize my vulnerability and sharing my past with you against me, only for you to therapize me and telling me who I am as a person, was very hurtful. Like, I had an amazing time getting to know you. I really saw potential in our connection. And, it was just really upsetting for having things end the way they did and have you communicate the way you did it.
Okay. Thank you. Now I feel like I have some things to say going into this conversation next week.
Can you remember that, or do we have to write it down?
If you could write it down, that would be even better.
Throw it at me and then I'll email it to you.
We both shared a lot about our past and choices we've made that we wouldn't necessarily make present day. And it was just very frustrating for you to only show me judgment while I was showing you grace. Additionally, you telling me how much validation you think I need.
And that I'm a people pleaser and I don't have good boundaries.
Yeah, I shared that with you because I wanted to be vulnerable with you. And I want you to understand both not only my strengths, but, even my weaknesses. And for you to weaponize that and further judge me was just really disappointed. And it's not the person I really grown to care about these past few weeks. I'm sorry things ended the way they did, but I wish you all the best. I mean, I would honestly just send that.
You would just text that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think you want to say more, but I don't think you should. Read it back to me.
And I'm worried if we have a conversation, he's just gonna.
Well,
he knows where the low blows are, and
he can't
I
make
just don't
you
think I want to sit through like a litigation of my own insecurities.
You be proud of your insecurities, and I really want, like, again, what I said when this call first started. You're still seeing him through rose-colored glasses, and you're not seeing him for the judgy, emotionally immature, probably the guy who sent you that. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm really not. I mean, I am team you, but that selfie that you sent me, that guy has a lot to be insecure about.
I thought that was the best picture of him.
That's too bad. Yeah. He's an all right looking guy, but that guy's been rejected by women before plenty of times. That guy is not. Is he the most charismatic man you've ever seen? Clearly not. I mean, a guy who's going to break up with you because you had a threesome, like, there are some deep-rooted insecurities going on there that he clearly hasn't dealt with.
Yeah.
And he's using some buzzwords. Is he in therapy?
No.
Okay, he's not in therapy. Even better. Hilarious. So clearly he is using buzzwords that he's learned on the internet through his friends and just like therapy speak. And he's, putting his lawyer hat on and fucking doing that shit. This is not a guy you need to be sad about. You learned so much about him through this that you could have learned much in. No, not I guess so.
Yeah, I did learn about him.
How good was the sex?
Very, very good.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah. Was it that irreplaceable?
Probably not irreplaceable.
What was so good about it? I am curious because we always hear from women who talk about how bad the sex is or whatever. Like, I'm curious, what made you feel like you were enjoying yourself?
What was so unique about it is I found it a lot more intimate than other sex I've had. Like the way that we would talk to each other. Like the last time I saw him, he was telling me, he was like, like while we were having sex, he was like, I want to give you a house. I want to give you a baby. Like, I want to just have a life with you. And it was so intimate. I was like crying.
I mean,
but then
that's a little intense.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, oh, this has to be it, because if this isn't it, like, how could it feel this way?
Well, I think there's a lot to learn here for you here. This was right before he, I'm guessing, climaxed. This is in the middle of sex.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Men will say the craziest shit, right before they climax. He wants to buy you a house. He wants to do all this, and it sounds like he's an emotional guy. He's not, he does not make you feel like your best self. He's not your person.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's going to be the last guy who judges you, but like your person is going to accept the fact that your person is going to appreciate that you enjoy sex and that you like exploring different sexual interests. Doesn't mean he's going to want to have a threesome or anything like that, but he will appreciate that about you. And they also won't judge you for the fact that you have made decisions in the past that you might not make in the future, and will appreciate your willingness to have learned from those decisions.
Yeah.
And a guy saying anything during sex could not be the most meaningless thing ever. When whatever men say to you immediately after they climax, if he says, I still want to buy you a house right after he climax, then you're working with something.
Okay. Well, it felt very special to me, but
I understand, but I'm just I'm just giving you some insider baseball here, that when you're naked with a man, and when a man's naked and he's standing at attention and he's hot and heavy, anything that comes out of his mouth, that's the thing. What's crazy is like they could not be more sincere about what they think they're saying. They mean it when they say it. It's just that it's not them talking. It's some other entity.
A lower part of their brain.
Yeah, but truly, I mean, I'm not. Yes.
Yeah.
So buyer beware about the things these people say to you when you're having sex, and if you're basing a lot of your connection and attention by it's great to be connected via sex, but he gave you a lot of false hope. The more I learn, and so you gotta let all those good memories that you have that you're spending a lot of time thinking about right now and missing them. You need to spend way more time about just how hypocritical, and again, I can't stress enough, sexist.
Yeah.
This is a zero chance he would unfriend a buddy for doing exactly what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
I feel like, so this is probably the third or fourth time that I've gone on vacation, and I'm literally on a vacation with my middle-aged parents. Like the first couple of days I was taking care to tell them like, oh, we're back in the room. I'm listening to a band with my parents. Like, I'm not out partying. I'm not at a bachelorette party. It's not wild and crazy. But I feel like multiple times when I've gone on vacation and when guys are away from me for like 3-4 days, it's like a switch flips. Like I've been broken up with multiple times because I've left the city for like a week. Is there a way that I can avoid that? Is that also just insecurity? Like, what do you think is going on? Because it has been a pattern.
How long are these relationships that are ending when you go on vacation? Because again, this one,
like 3 weeks to a month is,
yeah. So maybe it is bad timing. I think it's more they're using the vacation as an excuse. And again, seeing this guy's picture, hearing, talking with you, hearing how you're seeing this relationship versus how I'm hearing this relationship, there is a disconnect.
Yeah.
And you need to get better at seeing these relationships for what they are. And I get it. I get getting excited about someone, and I understand how just how frustrating dating can be. And we do get excited about someone, the last thing you want to do is start nitpicking it. But I think you need to slow yourself down a little bit when you get excited about these guys. I think you have a lot to offer in relationships. And I think you have to see that inside, not to sound all corny, but like you truly have to know that you are a catch. And I think you're maybe, how quickly are you sleeping with these guys?
That's something I'm working on. This guy I slept with on the third date.
And again, no judgment. Nanny and I hooked up the first night,
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you know, when you introduce sex in a relationship early on, it changes the dynamic. It just does. That's just a fact. And it is going to require an extra layer of emotional maturity, specifically from men. And so if you do really like a guy, you're just doing yourself a favor by slowing things down sexually so that you give yourself an opportunity to truly get to know who they are.
Yeah.
This is not about slowing. This is not about them judging you or thinking of you differently. This is so that you can have a clear understanding of who they are and that you don't get emotionally bonded to them for reasons outside of like just what you're learning about. Because like, again, like sex is a very powerful thing that affects our point of view and gets us attached to people because like sex is intimate. You're naked, you're exchanging fluids. Like you should feel connected to someone when that happens. But we're having more and more meaningless sex that we're confusing our connection with these people. And so, you know, if you're having sex on the third date, you might be falling for men that you wouldn't be falling for otherwise.
Yeah. One thing I've like tried to tell myself is like, I've never regretted not sleeping with someone, and I have regretted sleeping with some people. So keeping that in mind, like I'm trying to set up the situations better so it's easier not to sleep together. Like even with this guy, our second date was supposed to be kind of a Netflix and chill. And I thought about it and I texted him. I was like, actually, can you take me on a date tonight? Like, I don't want to just have you over at my house.
Yeah.
So
and the only advice I have to you about like vacations is like the next time you meet a guy you like and you got a vacation lined up, maybe use that as like a personal, like we're definitely not, don't tell him that. Don't be like, oh, I'll hook up with you over. But just like, all right, I'm going on vacation in 6 weeks. I'm definitely not sleeping with this guy until after the vacation. I guarantee you they don't break up with you before that.
Yeah.
Men are visual creatures and they fall in love by missing you, not sex. And so he didn't have to miss you because he knew what it was like to have sex with you. Next time you meet a guy, you don't have sex with him. Every time he sees you, he wants to have sex with you more and more. He'll wait forever.
Okay.
Men will wait for fucking ever, you know.
That's hard advice to take.
Dangle the carrot. I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said this to you and any woman listening. A guy has never dated a woman or committed to a woman because of sex.
Okay.
Sex will not convince him. It won't separate you. You won't distinguish yourself. Keep the mystery going. And if you have sex and he loves having sex with you, that like at the right time, we'll do the appropriate thing and keep him around. But try to make sure you have an emotional connection. And again, I am not sex shaming anyone who has sex early. But as I point out in my best-selling book,
I own a copy, don't worry.
But there's that line in there. If you're going to have sex in hookup culture, have sex because you want to have sex, not because you think it's going to do anything to your connection.
Okay.
Unless you are certain there is an emotional connection there without sex, only will sex help that emotional connection. But an emotional connection needs to exist, and that takes time, much longer than a month. And so if you are saying, I'm having sex, then you have to be like, I want to fuck. I want to fuck, and I don't care about what this person thinks of me. This is about me. I'm being selfish. I'm doing this because I want to get laid. And if you want, and that's how you feel, go fucking nuts. But if this is about someone you like, you're interested in, you see potential in, you want to build something with, then sex gets, is a risk. It is. And that's a fact. And that has nothing to do with my opinions about sex or has nothing to do with sex positivity or sex negativity. It's just a fact.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your advice. Very useful.
Stop letting this guy make you feel less than. This is not the guy to let this do that. This is.
Yeah.
Okay. But what you have learned, the takeaway is what you value when it comes to sex is someone who at least you want to make love more than you want to fuck a little bit more. You've done a lot of fucking. You haven't done much love making. And this guy acted like he was making love to you. He wasn't, but he acted like it. And so you can learn. That's all the more reasons that maybe the fact, despite you might liking sex and things like that, that you value a more intimate sexual experience. And all men are capable of that. And again, I don't think this guy deserves any brownie points for saying what he said to you because it was disingenuous. Because clearly he didn't want to buy you a house. It wasn't like, oh, I want to buy you a house and take care of you as long as you didn't have a threesome with coworkers, you know? There wasn't like a unless to that. He was 100% committed. He was passionate. He was serious, but it was disingenuous, you know? And the only way a man's going to be able to do what you want when it comes to the type of sex that you want is to have an emotional connection. He has to care about you as a person, and he has to understand who you are. He has to accept you for your strengths and your weaknesses, what this guy didn't do, and he has to still want to buy you the house. And there are plenty of men out there who will do that, but, you know, they are too dumb and too emotionally weak to do it on their own. So you're going to have the willpower to say no to your own needs. And you're going to have to say no to, you know, having sex for validation, which again, we've all done that. And I'm not judging you. I've done it. We've all done that. He's fucking done that. He's done that so many fucking times. He can't even remember their names.
Yeah. Yeah.
So stop letting this guy making you feel less than.
Okay.
You are on vacation, and despite all this bullshit I talked about having a way to have sex, if you got laid on this vacation, we would applaud you from this household.
I just met a cute army guy at the bar at lunch.
Yeah, go have some safe sex. Yeah. I'm not kidding.
All right, I'll think about it.
Well, go have fun. Stop. Get this guy out of your head. If you're going to touch base with him, touch base when you get back. But this guy, what I'm hearing is not your guy. This is you are seeing it through rose-colored glasses, and you're giving him credit he does not deserve. And you are sticking to things that were disingenuous.
Okay, that helps a lot with helping me frame this in my mind. So thank you, and thank you for the advice of how to approach that conversation, because I think we will have that conversation next week.
You got to be very calm. He's going to try to lawyer you.
Okay.
You have to be confident with what you are saying. You have to feel it. You can't just be repeating my words. You have to see my words as your words. And you have to believe that you didn't deserve to be treated the way you did. You have to see him as hypocritical. You have to see him as a little sexist and judgmental. And you can't see him as this super connected, emotional guy who wanted to make love and buy you a house, because that's not who he is.
Yeah.
This is who he is.
I guess the hard part is like feeling like he has categorized me as non-wife material, and I feel like I am eventually wife material.
To whoever who wants to marry you or wife material. What does that even mean?
You know, just those outdated like tropes.
Is that who you want to be?
You can't marry the girl who's had a threesome.
Do you want to be the 1950s housewife that is arm candy that some guy eventually cheats on and has a mistress, which they all did in the 50s? Is that what you aspire to be?
No.
So stop letting the idea of being that to someone be meaningful to you. You're going to be wife material for the person who accepts you for who you are, who sees you as like, I can't believe I got her. She's great. She's done all these things. She's a human being. She's made mistakes. She can recognize that. She's learned from it. She's had some fun. She's not a fucking like, she's not a prude. She's fun. She's, she's adventurous. She's not crazy, but like, boy, like we have fun together. She is exciting and cool and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to let men be willing to find that out about you without you trying to show that to them. And you just have to see it in yourself first.
Okay. I'll be looking for her on this trip. That part of me, I guess.
Well,
okay, I'm going to keep working on that. I feel like it's a muscle that you need to build, similar to like setting good boundaries. Like
if you do go fuck this army guy, you got to remember, I'm serious. I'm serious. This is about you having fun. This is about you being a sexually adventurous person. This is not about, you giving a shit about what he thinks about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll try to accept your mind frame.
If you do sleep with him and whatever he says about you or to you, that's like, oh my God, you're so great. I can't believe I met someone like you on vacation, blah, blah, blah. You just say, listen, buddy, I just rocked your world. It's why you're saying this shit. You don't really mean any of it. Calm down. That's true. You got to, and as long as you see it for yourself first, you got to start believing it first. So are you in therapy?
No, I'm not, but it is something that I had on my 2024 goals.
Well, BetterHelp, give it a shot. Super easy and convenient. The right therapist for you, a good therapist, will help you hold yourself accountable for things that I think you struggle holding yourself accountable for.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I've definitely
a good
thought that as
therapist will
well.
help reaffirm some things that you need to, believing yourself. And a good therapist will not let you go down mental rabbit holes of self-doubt and insecurities so that you seek out attention in the wrong places.
Okay. I'm
Look,
going to look into that
you
when
didn't
I get home.
you didn't
from
lose
this
anything
trip.
special, I can assure you, with this guy.
Yeah, I know. I guess I feel on the other end of this conversation, I guess I feel differently about it than I did going into this conversation. Because part of me did just want to be like, let me tell you all of the things that I have done in the last 2 years to be a better boundary setter and be less, require less validation, be more comfortable with myself. Like I wanted to like show him my resume of like, actually, look, I think you have the wrong idea. So forget you said that and let's get back together. And now I feel I can see kind of what you're saying a lot more.
All right.
So that's been very helpful.
It's a work in progress. It won't happen overnight, but
Yeah.
I promise you, when this episode comes out and you listen to it, I'm guessing you will see my POV a little bit better than you see yours right now.
Okay.
Because you'll hear yourself talk about him. And right now, you're not hearing yourself talk about him.
Yeah.
All right?
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
All
Have
right.
a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. What's your name?
My name is Sage and I'm 27.
How can we help, Sage?
So my husband is a shopaholic and we are now 80K in debt.
Okay. Jeez. Is he aware of his problem?
Yes.
Well,
unfortunately.
Well, no, fortunately.
Fortunately, but unfortunately, because it hasn't really stopped. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is a serious problem, right? This is not like some sort of like, it's not me going to like Natalie and I going to each other and be like, oh my God, we're spending too much money. This is like $80,000 in debt.
Yeah. And so like 35 of it is unsecured. So like credit card, personal loan type stuff. And then 50,000 of it is auto loan. Some of that is my car, but he decided that he needed to sell his truck that was working just fine and go get a car that was like $40,000 that wasn't really in the budget, especially with the way rates are right now. And so, yeah, it's been fun.
Do you guys have kids?
Interesting. We do have a daughter, yes.
Okay. Well, this is a very serious situation. Are you taking it seriously? Yeah,
we have had, and so backstory, we've been married 7 years. I think a lot of this started, my husband is type 1 diabetic. And so when we were first married and everything, we got married young. And so with him being type 1 diabetic, we didn't have great insurance to start out. And so diabetic supplies in his insulin and everything is outrageous. And so that kind of started the debt, I feel like, because we were like not able to keep on top of that. And then with his spending habits, because he grew up with mom and dad's credit card, never ended. So
gotcha. So what expectations do you guys have around like budgeting and things like that?
So we meet every payday for budgets, and I have like an Excel sheet that we go through, and like I write down like all of our balances that we have. I take money from his pay stub or a paycheck every time so that I know that the bills that we need to pay are getting paid. But I mean, then he has some left over, and it's been hard because I don't want to be like a mother to him and be like, oh yeah, I need to take all of your cards. You only have X amount to spend on everything. I have tried that and it caused a lot of contention in our relationship. And so we've gone back to making sure we're meeting every payday, if not every week, but somehow money keeps getting spent. And well,
what conversation, like where are we at in the addressing the problem with him?
He is looking into going to therapy.
Okay.
And he's hesitant and not wanting to do that. And so it's hard because I can't make him go and do that if he doesn't want to. But I have told him, I'm like, it's getting to the point where I don't want to separate. I don't want to do any of that. Obviously, we have a kid. I love him. We've been married for 7 years. I don't want anything to come between that. But it's getting to the point, if things don't stop, it could get to that. And so it's like,
have you communicated that? Have you communicated that to him? And I think
I have, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to over communicate that. And he needs to believe it, and you kind of say it, and like, again, you lead with love, because, like you said, I love you, but like, this is breaking my heart because you're putting me and our daughter at risk. You have a daughter, right?
Right.
You say daughter?
Yeah.
This could be her debt, like you're putting us in a situation that we might not possibly recover from. And you have habits that clearly you seem to have a hard time controlling. And that's scary. It's scary that you can recognize you have a problem, but you're not willing to do whatever you can to stop it. And it's affecting us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's affecting us to the point now.
It's your debt too. You're married.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's to the point now that, especially with the unsecured debt, that we can't afford to get out of the townhome that we are currently in. And there's not room to grow our family in this small townhome. It's also not in a great area for where we're living. And so it's like, we don't really want my daughter and future kids grow up in this area. And so that makes it difficult. And so one of the things that we have thought about, or I guess kind of I thought about, we've had conversations over the last couple months about it, but I've looked at doing surrogacy to get us out of this debt and then shred all of our cards and everything. But I don't know.
Wait. So you would carry someone else's child for a paycheck?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen.
Yes, I've always wanted to do surrogacy.
Okay.
But yeah.
I know very almost nothing about this. I mean, now that I've been fascinated on the other end, I think anyone willing to do that for a family who needs it are worthy of the title as hero. So, but if you're going to do it, I don't want you to do it to get out of debt.
Right.
I want you to do it because you're doing something noble for a family who needs that,
Right.
I don't want you to have mixed feelings about that. And that's not going to solve your problem. As a mother, that unnecessary or stress of any kind is one of the greatest risks of a pregnancy. And this problem that your husband has, isn't taking away your stress, but only adding that stress. So you being a surrogate during this very stressful period of time, and it could get you out of debt. But the problem with that your husband has, how do you know he's not going to spend the money you have coming in before it even comes in?
Right.
You're thinking, it might get us out of debt, and he goes out and buys a fucking boat.
Yeah. Well, the one good thing is that we do have separate accounts and then one account where all the bills come out of. And so the money from that would be going straight to me. And so I don't think he would know that it's coming, but he wouldn't see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Listen, I think like at the end of the day, what I said earlier, you have to over communicate where an honest kind of evaluation of where you're at. I love you with all my heart. There's nothing I want more for us to spend the rest of our lives together. I want us to continue. I want us to grow our family. I want us to raise our kid together. But you are making decisions that are making that impossible for us to continue. And you're making me consider things I never wanted to consider in the first place. But like my hands are tied because you are putting me and our daughter at risk. And as much as I love you, I can't let that happen.
Right.
And I need you to do everything in your power. If you can recognize you have a problem, I need you to start doing something about this problem. It sounds like he has an addiction. I'm not an addiction expert, and there's other addictions other than alcoholism and drug addiction. Hi, I'm Adam. I'm a shopaholic, Maybe.
Exactly.
He needs to understand just how serious this is and how serious you are about it, and you say, I love you. I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. I'm doing whatever I can, but I can't have you risk this family and our safety. You having debt puts you at risk on so many levels. You pointed, those direct levels, with just creditors, limits your ability to move or upgrade and put yourself in maybe safer neighborhood. Like what happens, you can't predict the future, but like you don't want to be in debt, when a tragedy happens, and tragedies often happen, what happens when, if something were to happen, you need some extra cash for your kid, or something like that. It's a very serious thing. You should never feel like you said too much or you don't want to be a nag. I don't think you can over communicate this. Certainly, again, I'm just some guy, not an expert, but I definitely think this challenge is worthy of you all. They're soliciting other people's advice and experts in this field, especially, when it comes to addicts. but that sounds pretty serious to me. And I think you want to get ahead of it as much as you can. Well, I'm sorry you're going through this.
It's okay. I mean, it is what it is. I wish it wasn't this, but not a whole lot I can do about it now. So,
well, no, there is a lot you can do about it, and I know it feels a bit defeating, but that's the thing. Just don't sit idly by. If you're going to go down with a fight, so to speak. You know,
right?
And go down having no regrets, because you're not going to regret trying to help him out. The only way you're going to regret this is biting your tongue and doing nothing and letting $80,000 turn into $100,000 or $120,000, and then finally deciding to leave him because he wasn't, you need to lead with love, but vocalize this as a very serious inflection point in your relationship.
Yeah.
And if he's not going to do it for himself, he needs to do it for you and his kid. And you're there to support. You're there to help him through it, but he needs to stop. This can't be, well, I don't want to do therapy. If he can recognize he has a problem, he needs to do something about it, because, you can be like, you're scaring me. I go to bed worried every night about if we're going to be okay, and I can't have that. And I need you to do something about this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, sorry you're going through this. Please keep us posted. This is one of those calls where I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of people listening who relate to you. And if you learn anything in this journey and you're willing to share as an update about, what you got right or wrong as you go through this, I think it would be very much appreciated by our audience.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop and let you know.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Take care.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow, live from the desert of Coachella for reality recap. And then this week on Going Deeper, gonna be wild. See you then. Bye. Hey guys, if you loved what you listened to, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.